Are you planning on ever playing the Silent Hill 2 remake? I'm not gonna lie, if I ever play it, I'll play the original. I feel like now, in the current context, if, like, the history of Silent Hill 2 is heavily tied to what we would now consider kind of like an analog horror deal. Like the time and the limitations. Maybe the game today is like technically more fun, but as an art and historical piece, I think I'd be more interested in that, you know? And like, I don't think that's the case for everything that you make that's a remake. Like they remade like Resident Evil 2. That's fine. Resident Evil 2 is a different game to the Resident Evil 2 remake. You know what I mean? But to be fair, the original Resident Evil 2 wasn't like Silent Hill 2. Let's not compare apples to oranges. It's like a fun action, like gonzo kind of, you know, deliberately over the top silly game, right? So you want to do that with modern graphics? Sure, fine. That's cool. They age with you. I feel like Silent Hill 2, in my opinion, I would want to go and play the original. I'm going to watch other people play the modern one because I still want to see it, you know. But I just kind of got the impression that the original Silent Hill 2 was given a lot of its weight through the inconvenience of moving your character through the world and having the fixed camera perspective, the over-the-top camera, the way everything was awkward and jilted. I feel like that contributes to that clunkiness that makes you... This is what made Signalis really good. They understood this. You can't make a horror game out of like a perfect, like fluid movement system where you have really high fidelity control and you can quickly whip out your gun. It's why the Dead Space games are scary in the sense of like they're dark and spooky, but when you're fighting something, you're in an action game and you're stomping around and stuff, right? And they get that. I'm not saying they misunderstood the project that they were setting out to do. But then you play Signalis, and Signalis is like always scary. And from some stuff I've seen in Silent Hill 2, like the scariness is kind of like enhanced by the fact that you're always fighting with the controls, because nothing takes away the horror feeling like you're in control. Feeling like you're not in control is one of the things that really ups that feeling. Yeah, it feeds into the psychological element. Oh, you know, you should be disheveled in a horror game. Well, you should be disempowered for sure. Some of that shit didn't age well. I think it's a little bit difficult sometimes to judge whether or not something aged well, because when you view a game in its historical context, sometimes the inconvenience of playing an older game is a core component of one of the things that made it joyful in the first place. Like, Super Mario 64 is trivially easy compared to any modern 3D Mario game. The platforming challenges in the darker side of the moon on Super Mario Odyssey are orders of magnitude more difficult than anything you have to do at any point in Super Mario 64. The opening of Super Mario 64, the opening moons, or stars, are so difficult, or sorry, so easy, so lacking in difficulty that going through them now mostly feels like a nostalgia runabout. Like you just go through it like, oh yeah, I go here, done. You know, it's not like a challenge. You're not like being challenged. You're doing it because you're doing it, because it feels good to play Super Mario 64, you know? But does that make it bad? It's Super Mario 64, man. We've all gotten a lot better at games in general since back then. I'll always defend FNAF 1. There are hundreds of unplayable games on the NES because of poorly aged difficulty. Well, people have to understand, like, a lot of those NES games were extremely unfun for their difficulty. Like, go back and play, like, Ninja Gaiden or whatever, you know? A lot of those games were very, very poorly designed with difficulty, and the only reason it was fun, like, for you when you were a kid is because you didn't have the expectation of beating it. You were just like a little dipshit trying your best. But then if you play them now, it's like, okay, guys are just spawning like everywhere. I think that Castlevania was a fair game. Like, punishing but fair. I think Ninja Gaiden absolutely wasn't. You know, because those games were like $60, which was back then $100 million, and you were expected to play them for a while, so they had to be so difficult. But, you know, yeah, I don't enjoy the old NES games that much. You know, some of them are some of the like Mega Man games, but even then you have to redo the whole damn thing if you die, and it's like I get it, but what do you think about anime games? What do you mean anime games? Just any like Japanese game with anime art style, or like games that are like weeb gotcha games, you know? Is Persona an anime game? I guess, I mean, I guess that'd be a pretty clear-cut example of one. Elden Ring is an anime game. That's true. I think they mean Nier Automata. I mean, it's not as good as people say it is. It's still pretty good, right? Is Final Fantasy an anime? If Final Fantasy isn't, then nothing is. That Final Fantasy has to be an anime game. A lot of the design concepts of NES games came from arcade quarter poppers and less communication and education about game design. Yeah, you can't really fault them for the NES game design stuff when, like, in fairness, they didn't really have a template to work off of. Home gaming wasn't even a thing. I mean, what are you building that off of, right? They didn't even grow up playing games. They were just making the games. Whatever happened to trying? Whatever happened to putting in effort? It's not in style anymore. No, it's not. It's uncool to put in effort. It's such a sickening tendency, you know? It's always something like that, isn't it? Oh, it's uncool to try. Well, you know what? Being too scared to try is pretty damn uncool. That's what you got to realize. When you get older, and a lot of you are like 15, you're stupid, you know, but you'll get older, or you'll die. I mean, but if you live and you do get older, you know, no one cares about being cool. Anyone who cares about being cool past like college is a loser. It's a loser thing to think about, you know. You're shuffling around your action figures, you know, it's lame, all right? Past a certain point, the only thing that matters is being kind and being interesting and being like fun to be around. I mean, there's stuff like that, you know, but being cool, it's very juvenile, very like you know, I get my opinion on how people ideally would behave from isekai anime kind of perspective. You know? It's just lame. Is that not being cool? You shouldn't think of it as being cool. That's what I'm saying. Coolness has to be authentic because there's nothing less cool than being like inauthentic in your attempt to be cool. If you're just presenting yourself like, well, what would a cool guy do? That's very uncool. It's performative, it's lame. You want to be, if you want to be cool, like if that's still a thing in your head, that has to be like a second order concern. Trying to be cool is like trying to fall in love, right? It happens when you're not looking. You know, a watched pot never boils. No one ever became cool because they went to the store and they were like, this exact big cool jacket. Every guy needs a cool jacket. This cool jacket will make me cool, you know? No one ever fell in love by going to the function and being like, I'm here to fall in love. Like, it happens when you're not looking. It's got to sneak up on you.